people, you know, they will recognize it as a head and shoulders because it's got a head, a high with a higher high and a lower high. I think that before it comes down, we try to stop them out. So anybody that's shorted it in the name of exposure to the downside for the right shoulder is subject to being stopped out before any continuation to the downside. Now, of course, we can see that the red zone and green zone are related in this case. You know, we can see that the green zone has launched it up to the red zone, and the red zone didn't quite make it all the way back down to the green, but it came to the 200 purple line. You can see the people of the right shoulder are being put under a lot of pressure. Ironically, most of them have actually already been stopped out because they didn't catch the spiky right shoulder. They were late, a lot of them. They'll think twice before playing this pattern again. Ironically, this pattern's likely to work the next time that it shows. But without them, You can see the first thing of the week that we talked about was the fact that that right shoulder crap. People associated with it, the people that just looked up the pattern on Google and found that it was a bearish pattern that they should be exposed to downside. A moment from now, every single one of them will either be a buyer or a loser. Very, very tough way to start the week for a lot of people, but that's okay. As long as the hands-off approach, was more like I was saying with this one, with this pattern, getting direct exposure to its failure and to the third consecutive high. It's a little risky itself, but less risky than trying to take the head and shoulders down. As I mentioned, everybody associated with the right shoulder not being put into a very good position. And it seemed like it was going for a second. It was like, oh, everybody, we're going. You're missing the train. Just meant they were all fooled out of it. And I'm like, why does the market do this? Because you can, statistically, it's very, very, very likely that many individuals fell for that and were stopped out in the process. That's one batch down, The horde that much less impactful on the institution's precise movements and inclinations. Because everybody shows up in the allure of it being something that they can have for a run like the other week, right? And then the market starts running like it did that one day where it was very, very clear. I was like, everyone, make sure you don't want to miss this big move, and all over the place and stuff. It's probably one of the clearest, biggest moves that I've ever seen in my life, and I'm sad that I don't get to share it with more people. But
At the bottom there, you mean?
no. I'll show you. So first things first, we look at the general chat is September 28th. I was typing this in the actual general chat. This is the morning so far. At everyone, come trade. Let's do this. Going to see a nice run today, right? That's just after the open, where we were trading that, and then at that time in the exclusive chat, I was saying this. That's September 28th. So I mean, the day started out. We were talking about it coming down to that pattern, and we did that in 188 something to a 61% retracement. So it came down to that 61% retracement, and when it hit that retracement, that was a nice move. But then it fell through it, and I was like, good spot to trim some off if you took the downwards move. Expect a 61 test from the underside. And that was that, like just in there, that yellow line right there. And then right after that move, I suggested this. There's the test from the 61 from the other side. There are also B points that you can see above. We are almost at now. I'm bullish on the entire day. The yellow line at the top becomes a red yellow. I made that red yellow. These are the green dashed lines cleared so far. So like all of those little levels were cleared. The main trend line on the top of the range at everyone you won't want to miss out. And that broke into here. Broke into that move there. They carried on. And literally expected that to fake out to the downside and to continue up. I made it green because of that. And it's like that's after this day too, and I'm like, man, I know I should make a video on this because this was absolutely clear too. If I just scroll up a little bit, yeah, this one I used it on a different chart. The very very low down there on that spike right there. That spike was that move right there, right there. On this chart, it was a falling wedge, but I was looking at it from here. And even from the highs too. It's unbelievable actually. I could go on and on and on and on and on about the moves, uh, how we did them. Yeah, and on that day, I explained, you know, I kept frequently showing it if you watch the video exactly how to hold the NQ from that first picture that I basically said on general non-exclusive when I was like, hey, um, this is the morning so far at everyone. You know, we're going to see a nice run. All of this chop right here, that was right there.
Okay, okay.
And that NQ ended up, I had two of them and they were worth $5,000 a contract by the end of it. And this is what I did on MNQ at the same time. So like literally as it popped up out of that range, you can see it popped up and then had this coast down. You can see that coast down. I completely just hedged that whole coast down and it came right back to my average price. Literally right back to my average price, but I hedged it all the way down. And then I reversed my hedge and went long here. Up, 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 up. and then started shorting it in there too before I went long at the end and carried it up. So it was unbelievable, unbelievable. Very proud of it. But this week it'll be hard to to top that for sure. And it's just like I like to mention it because it'll get buried in the chat come a week from now. Nobody will ever get to learn from it or see it again. Basically, just to make it clear, the red zone and green zone that I'm seeing right now, it's like this. Red at the top, green at the bottom. Everything outside of it, like this is a completely different range. We could use that range completely separately. Like this is a completely different range. We could use that completely separately. Now this is a gold bar that was once a 61 variant. This gray bar was a gap. So at some point in the past, there used to be a giant gap right there. This used to be the middle area. There used to be concentrated consolidation there where all wicks and spikes came back to that level. The predominant wicks and spike zone for support, predominant wicks and spike zone for resistance. The pink line was a target that I put in for the downwards move. After we caught the upwards move, I was like, hey, this pink line is something that we're going to test. It was 2 days ago, the high of 2 days ago. We came back to test it. Another thing we haven't seen yet this week. Good to understand the previous most effective reversal patterns. And it's funny that we start the week off with a head and shoulders and can't even do it properly. The irony. That's just because everyone got comfortable with it. We have to change it on them. And it's like it's proof to me that the institutions change it on the people. Because I don't think, if anybody saw how effective this pattern was last week and how well it worked for them if they were part of it, why would they ever change it? Why wouldn't they make that pattern happen again this week? Because if any individual had control of the market, they would choose for it to do something like that. Choose for it to do whatever made them money last week. And why does the market change so frequently then? If that's the case, if everybody's strategy doesn't change so frequently, then why does the market? And nobody else, everybody's just oblivious to it for some reason. They think that their strategies are going to fit in line with it for a prolonged period of time in an ever changing market. When, you know, right now, it's clear that the market does not respect the same thing over and over again. And when people start to change, so will the market. It will probably give the same thing over and over again. As soon as everyone starts to change. But on the whole, it's important to be aware of where the masses are and where their mindset is, and exactly how it's deteriorating their accounts. Because I have a belief that on the whole, the institutions are chipping away at each individual slowly but surely, and in time they're effective. They manage to profit every year on year out. The individual survives. That's what their goal is, just to survive. Not to make money like the institutions, but to survive. It would seem. If they were trying to make money, they would put in more time. They would have more effort, you know. And I can see that a lot of people, like I look outside right now, I'm like, how much do they spend doing it? I wonder. And is it enough? Because it becomes the question of, are the other things worth doing more? And I'm like, well, can you make more money at that than you can doing this right? And I'm like, it's very hard. I don't know another thing that I could do other than sell uh military weapons to the US government or something like that. They can really be as easy as doing it right. Like last week, basically capturing the low on the very, very extreme and then hedging against it every single which way, shape, and possible. Like that sits between me and God, literally. Like I'm like, when I die, I'm like, I don't need people to look at it, notice it, anything like that. I'm like, this is what I've done in my life, and nobody did it for that week, and I did it. And I'm like, that's the beauty of it, and I can teach you how to do it too. And it's not going to be easy, but it's going to be worth it. That's the thing. So the end of the day, it's not even the profit and loss that really got me then. It's the fact that I knew that I did something that nobody else could, and that's powerful. And especially if you're doing things like that in the industry where it makes the most amount of money on the land, you got a good thing going. Like I was talking to somebody over the weekend about their account or something. It was like basically one of their trials, and they beat it, and they were talking to me about the money that they made, and I was like, well, or that they could have had if they made it on the live account. And I was like, well, would you rather you know the the thousands of dollars that you made, or the information and the confidence that you can make it again? Like the ability to make it again is worth more than the sum in any which way, shape, and form. And I mean, that's like many other things. It's like, would you rather have the wheelbarrow full of goods, or the ability to fill the wheelbarrow full of goods? It's like, of course you would want to fill it. You'd be able to fill it, be the master at filling it, not just end up, you know, oh, I managed to grab this, let's get out of here. A lot of individuals seem to think like that in trading for some reason, when it's like, oh, I managed to, sneak out with a quick profit on Tesla, before it destroyed everything. And it's funny to me too that the markets, started the week by running, before everyone was really, essentially, like, everybody's not really warmed up yet, you could say. And it forced itself out of the gates. So what does that do to the average human being? It's like, oh, okay, all right, we're ready now. Let's go. Look at all the money I've just missed out on. Let's figure out where I can be in on this, or how I can make some money on this. And then look what it gave them: a pattern that failed, a pattern that went sideways, a pattern that didn't offer them the big juicy runs of the morning, but a stop out. So after, getting their emotions all riled up and being like, "Oh my goodness, the market's moving hot this morning, isn't it, ladies and gentlemen?" And then essentially went sideways for them after a pattern that was very common. One of the first things, if you type in trading patterns, you'll find Head and Shoulders on maybe the first or second page. It'll be on there. And so you could find that most individuals would understand the way that it works. And then it fails for them, only if they were privy to the information. At the end of the day, I did mention that the Head and Shoulders would fail, but I am ultimately actually bearish on the entire upwards move. I think that if you've got your long trade from the weeks before, you don't give it up, but you find a hedge every day, just like the hedge funds have to. You know, it's like, okay, here we go for another day. And you can see it's like, what is this? Is this I was gonna say, what is this then? Because I mean, we're doing the same thing. Should I incorporate hedge into our title as well? Because not a day goes by where I don't talk about it. Not a day goes by where I don't think it's the effective strategy. For anybody that's held anything that's worth anything, and I'm like, that has to be consideration, has to be a on the table. And I mean, like, I wonder. Of course, the triangle, an indecisive pattern. Not because I'm indecisive on it, but because it is a pattern that presents two trend lines, and one of them has to break. One of them will break, but which one? The pattern itself doesn't tell us. So if the pattern itself doesn't tell us, okay, because what about just this triangle here? Like with no price action, what's bullish or bearish about it? Is there anything bullish or bearish about it? Because I can show you another pattern where if I change it to here, it has an inclination. It has a bearish inclination and a bullish inclination. But why not here? Because its indecisiveness is parallel. We can see that the levels are parallel, or sorry, they're what's it called? Um, they're converging into a tip. Sorry, basically not parallel, but converging into a tip. And you can see that as the price continues on into the triangle, it's left with an ultimatum. It has to break one of the lines in order to remain in the other trend. So we all know that a trend is coming out of it. And that's what everybody wants because that's where the money is. There's more money on the trend that leaves the triangle than there is on any trend that's left in the triangle. So what we do is we understand that it's going to have to leave the triangle in time, and one of the extremes is going to have to break. But which one again? That's why it's an indecisive pattern because it's not depicted just by the pattern itself. Now, there's a few things that can tell you whether or not it's going to go up or down, in the environment. Another thing that's really important to understand as well with these is whenever it does leave, it kind of just swats everyone back into the triangle so many times. So, like, we can get movements like this, you know, whichever one floats your boat, and it could go sideways and then pop out of the top and the bottom equal distances, and it could do the bottom first or the top first. It honestly doesn't matter. And when it does it, it it's finishing with the consolidation. In my opinion, I think that there's far better patterns to be interested in. This is something that it's like if you see it happening, it's best to endure it, not to anticipate what it's going to try and do. Sometimes you might get big triangles that might lead on that there can be a lot of sideways movement, but essentially in today's market right now, we can see a lot of the times that we have a triangle, the first thing that it's inclined on doing is returning back to it. And that's if it's even interested in leaving out of the original side that it left. It's very common for it to touch both sides. And, that makes me think it's like, is the consolidation really over? Till it leaves everything? Till it gets out of the high? It gets out of the low? Because and it's like, what's funny is if it leaves the high and the low and it hasn't come back to the triangle, well, it doesn't matter. It could be even on both sides. So it's kind of necessary to try and test the triangle a little bit so we don't have to later. And it's like, if I had control of the market, like if you gave the control of the market to anybody in the world, I don't think they would ever pick this one. Because if they were like, all right, you can make your positions anywhere you want, right? And then move the market however you wanted to move it. Just like a game for like a little bit of science experiment, okay? And essentially that would be interesting, because why would anybody lose money for themselves? And it's like, oh, you got to keep the money after too, you know? In a hypothetical situation. Say it's a dream or something. But at the end of the day, why would you ever move the market against you? You'd be like, all right, I'm going to buy right now. It doesn't matter where it is, and then I'm going to say it's going to go up, right? And then I'm going to sell it when it's went up, or I'm going to keep it going up. We'll see what happens, right? So, at the end of the day, a hypothetical situation, why would anybody make it go sideways and be like, oh, you know what? Instead, I'm going to buy it, and I'm not going to have it make me money. I'm going to have it go sideways, and I'm going to watch it. That sounds kind of counterproductive. And then it makes me think, why would anybody make a pattern that that profits them fail? Why would anybody make a cheat sheet of patterns that they've recognized and then sometimes have some of them fail? Doesn't make much sense, does it? So to consider the entity that wants the pattern to fail, and what benefit does it give them when we all lose on it? You can start to think, oh shit, they make money when we lose. And if those are our patterns, why do they seem to fail so much now? They used to work a lot, and the institutions were developing their skills, I suppose you could say. But at the end of the day, here we are again, I must say, from the green zone to the red zone, anybody that's just simply played the range. You want to know what's funny? Over the past month that I've been streaming on all these sources, I haven't put in any of these red zone and green zones in, but every day, well, I might have put some, but not many. Every day we respond to ones from long time ago, from way back in the day. Like, I didn't put this red zone, green zone in, I think, over a year ago. It's a long time. A year? People still trading in the short term a year ago have that much impact now? I mean, like, who could? I mean, it's so unlikely that it's a unanimous decision of the public that still have the same technical ranges when half the public doesn't even use technical analysis. They just use news and, like, they read sentences that other human beings put out there and they're convinced to buy their positions. Like I said, if you took it from the green zone, the red zone was clear. If you didn't take any off there, I mean, that's a hard lesson. You don't want to learn that lesson. It's a very you don't want to learn it regularly. You only want to learn it uh, once, and hopefully not through your own experience. The lesson is, if you take it from the green zone and you hit the red zone, you always want to make sure that it's safe to continue holding whatever you have left, because you know what the red zone could do? Provide the same risk in inverse as the green zone. It could go the other side of the range, from one side to the next. Like from here, oh, not that indicator. I meant click this here. So when it goes from one side to the next of the red zone and green zone, it can go to the other one. But does it do it the same way every time? No, it doesn't. It goes back and forth in different ways. Sometimes taking a similarity and showing us it again. Like, you know, this movement right here? I think we saw it right here. Very strange. But is it not true? Hmm, sorry. That this involved a move from the red zone that came back to the red zone. And is it not true that this is a move that came from the green zone and it came back to the green zone? So it's like I say, I like, as strange as it may sound, I like to, take all the variables in the situation, especially the ones that are mathematically factual. Like it did make a journey off the red zone and it decided to make this part of its counter trend pullback before making it to the other side of the range. And then when it got to the green zone, it decided to make this part of its counter trend pullback before getting to the other side of the range. So we've seen that twice now. Could we see it again? Well, it may be a thing that we do in this range because we've only ever done it in the range, or have we? I mean, we haven't looked. We have to look, And I'm like, well, hold on, have I looked? No, let's look. And I'm like, I'm looking, I don't see nothing. You could take that shape over and actually drag it over top. If you struggle to see the distances, like if you're like, oh yeah, this distance right here, I want to just roughly see if there's anywhere that I've seen it before. Like, is it here? You know, is it in here? Have we seen it before? Is it something normal, or am I right to be looking at it as something that we've never done before? And like we've done it in different ways, but it's never been used to get from one side to the next of a range before. Ironically, it's been used in other profound ways. So, now, is it not true that we return back to the triangle? What did I mention about that, right? Where's my triangle up top? Alright. Anyways, we came back to the triangle. Like I said, we could go from one side to the next, or from one side to the next as well. Doesn't mean just coming back to the triangle. Sometimes we just do that, though. Sometimes it's like, hey, I'm going to come back to the triangle, and then we lift. Sometimes we come back to the triangle twice, and then come underneath twice. The pain in the ass because it just basically is going nowhere while it's doing that. And a lot of these favorite patterns that everybody loves, I'm like, well, they are actually a big waste of time in my opinion. Especially when they lead to nothing. Like this pattern right here, the most effective reversal in like maybe the early 2000s, you could say, or maybe even earlier, like the decades before. Head and Shoulders pattern, it doesn't get plastered all over the internet because it doesn't work, but because it has worked. And at the end of the day, for the amount that it has failed, there's nowhere near as many people trying to talk about it. Because when it fails for an individual, what do you think they do? You think they make a video on it? You think they talk about it? You think they put it out there? They don't seem to do that for some reason. They're just like too busy like dying inside that their pattern failed, really. If we get down to it, really. Um and that's brutal, but it is the case. We don't see that. We see a lot of things working for everyone out there. And that's just suspicious to me. I don't like that. So especially when I see so much failure out there, I'm like, what about all of the patterns that we see on the cheat sheet and how they fail? Are they not patterns too? Because when I say, hey, there's going to be a falling wedge and it's going to have a failure aspect to it, then we start to think, oh, I know exactly what that pattern looks like. I know exactly what those expectations are going to lead to. I know exactly what the head and shoulders that doesn't work out looks like. And unfortunately, this one's just absolutely terrible. So because back in the day, well, like a week or two ago, we would do this. Now, this is terrible from its original standpoint, because you know what it used to do is it used to do this. That's a big difference, right? Going down and actually making an entirely new downtrend. And then there's this. This is not going down at all. Do you see how after the head and shoulders it essentially returns back to the same level, where if you look at the equality of it all, it's really just made this movement. It's really just started from this point. Oh, started from this point, made a high, came all the way down on the biggest move of the chart, and then returned back to the middle. Let's take everything off. What we're left with. Another way to do this, which I mean, that's everywhere. What day have we not seen that? You know, becomes a question. Is the market? Well, actually, yes. It can have a day where this is the open and this is the close, and it just goes like that. We've seen that before, sure. Not much time for this, but lately we've been red zone, green zone, all over the place. And I mean, how do you make a red zone and a green zone without making this pattern? Can you do it? Oh yeah, and this doesn't count. It's the same thing. Okay, which I should talk about that more too. Does everybody see this one? What about this one? Like all of these ones in here. What about upside down? And I mean, it's really easy to find when, this pattern is part of so many other ones. Like this one. You might be thinking, what's going on there? Well, trend break to trend break, this trend has to break in order for us to get this bit. This downwards bit has to break in order for us to get this bit. This upwards bigger move has to break in order for us to get this one. That downwards bit obviously has to break in order for us to get that one. And I mean, that is one trend break, two trend break, three trend break, four trend break, five trend break. I know that's not our beautiful, typical five wave move. Not too beautiful, but it's more correct in this case.